Happy 4th of July. And the way to celebrate it is to not watch the television because, as you could see, we had another mass shooting today. 6 people were killed. I think a dozen or so are injured. Now, of course, immediately, without the person even being caught for this act of terrorism and humanity, the argument about the Second Amendment has come to light once again, just like on partition. So what I like to do is basically try to elucidate to you the best I can the concept and the definition of the Second Amendment and what it's there for. Now, of course, this is a politicized argument. People of the right are basically saying the Second Amendment shouldn't be friendly. We should own guns. Yet people of the left who are basically saying that, no, we need to have more gun regulations and less automatic weapons, whatever that means, to be at the disposal of the public. And what I'm saying is that the truth is not on either side, it's right down the middle. And that this is not about the people. This is about the defense of the people from who? From a foreign enemy? No. From a domestic one? Yes. Who? The government. Same government that the both of you support at some level. This is where the ignorance comes in because you vote. Vote for Republicans and Democrats, in which they are not any different from each other. In regards to this, they both agree that the public should be less armed. And this is exactly what the writers of the Constitution were warning about. Isn't that what the 4th of July was all about? Defense, freedom from a foreign invader, which was the British monarchy. So the second, and I'm, by the way, I'm not a gun owner. Never shot a gun, never even held a gun. So I absolutely support the right for the citizenry to possess weapons. Not against each other, but from the most dangerous force in the world, which ironically you support with your vote, which currently they're turning around and saying, well, you don't deserve these weapons. Whereas the Second Amendment guarantees you the right to own them. Because, like I said, the authors of the Constitution were more worried about you than you were about yourselves at the current time. Now, the Second Amendment is the protection and the right to keep and bear arms. And this was ratified December 15th, 1791, along with a couple of other articles of the Bill of Rights. And in 2008, more recently, was the District of Columbia versus Heller, which was a landmark decision of the U.S. Supreme Court, which ruled that the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects an individual's rights to keep and bear arms, unconnected with service in a militia. Now, the Supreme Court affirmed for the first time that the rights belong to individuals for who? Self-defense in the home, while also including that the right is not unlimited. It does not preclude the existence of long-standing prohibitions, such as forbidding the possession of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, or restrictions on carrying the dangerous and unusual weapons. And in McDonald versus the City of Chicago in 2010, the Supreme Court ruled that the state and local governments are limited to the same extent as the federal government from infringing upon this right. That's how important it is. Now, the whole basis of the Second Amendment was based partially on the right to keep and bear arms in English common law, and was influenced by the English Bill of Rights of 1689, in which Sir William Blackstone, an English jurist and judge of the 18th century, described the right as an auxiliary right, supporting the natural rights of self-defense and resistance to oppression and the civic duty to act in concert in defense of the state. So that means back then we had a militia, which should have been in place today, but because of the 1908 Dick Act, that right was eliminated, and in replacement of the militia, you now have the National Guard. The militia is every able-bodied man from the age of 16 to 60 who would act in defense of tyranny against the state if the state decided to do so. That's the whole basis of the Second Amendment, is to protect you from the state. Don't you think that's a worthwhile amendment? And why they're so desperately trying to get rid of it and ratify it and amend it? Now, also that Blackstone brings up was any label of rights as auxiliary must be viewed in the context of the inherent purpose of a Bill of Rights, which is empower a group with the ability to achieve a mutually desired outcome and not to necessarily enumerate or rank the importance of rights. Now, former presidents James Monroe and John Adams supported the Constitution being ratified. However, it was James Madison in Federalist number 46, in which Madison wrote how a federal army, which would be the military today, could be kept in check by state militias, in which he said, quote, a standing army would be opposed by a militia, end quote. So that means we would have a backup army made up of the people, the common people, in defense against a federal army if the government decided to revolt against its citizens for any means. And that Madison argued that state militias would be able to repel the danger of a federal army. It may well be doubted, he quotes, it may well be doubted whether a militia thus circumstanced could ever be conquered by such a proportion of regular troops, end quote. And then Madison contrasted that the federal government of the United States to the European kingdoms, which he described as afraid to trust the people with arms and assured that the existence of subordinate governments forms a barrier against the enterprises of ambition. Exactly right. Now, let me ask you, people of the Democratic Party who support it, those who support the Biden administration, those who are center leftists, even those of the extreme left. You actually support the federal government? Aren't you the ones who are considered the liberal mindset? Liberal from what? Freedoms from restrictions of the government and the state, if they so would choose to use their authority. Aren't you the ones who are afraid or careful about oppression, which is similar to those of the classic conservatisms? Well, then what the hell are you doing supporting ratifying this important amendment by those in the federal government? What the hell are you doing? This is exactly what's going on. No, what they're doing is the federal government, which is smart, they're using the legacy media to brainwash you, and it's working, in saying that all these mass shootings, they're happening all the time. Why do you think they're happening all the time? Why? If you look at the essence of this country, you'll understand that we have a very long-standing problem with psychological and maybe even emotional attachment to violence. Why do you think we mental health? Also, what about the stresses of life? Look what's going on around us. It didn't just start in the last 2 years with the COVID lockdowns. This has been going on for decades. I mean, we still have a $7.25 minimum wage, federal minimum wage. skyrocketing rent prices, skyrocketing food prices, skyrocketing bills, and there's no stress relief in the middle. And people do have a breaking point. Does that mean you have to go out and shoot people? No, I'm not giving them an excuse, but you have to understand what is happening with the psychology of these people. You have to understand their point of view, or else you'll never solve the problem. And solving the problem doesn't come from ratifying your Constitution. But the government is trying to tell you that's exactly what needs to happen, and that these problems that I talked about just now, don't worry about those. We'll take care of those. Has that happened under the Clinton administration? Has that happened under the Barack Obama administration? And you have the right. Let's get to you now. You Trumpers and wave flaggers, people of the Oath Keepers and all these far-right sectarian groups wearing masks and going to Boston and going inside libraries, concentrating on drag shows and, you know, all these idiots, right? Okay. That's not the problem. Now, you idiots, I got to blame you for January 6th, although I think that too was infringed by the intelligence services at some level. But my God, it's you guys that support these dumb ideas like Q, Sandy Hook, fake shooting, crisis actors and whatnot. And by the way, I got to blame you, not you in general, but you fringes for infiltrating the 9/11 truth movement, which I got to deal with on a daily basis. Thanks for that. But nevertheless, you people on the right, instead of making the left the enemy, the common people, by the way, you shouldn't be embracing them. That's how you win people over. You call them snowflake, you make fun of them and their physical appearance, you make fun of them for their political affiliations, you make fun of them for everything. Like the extreme left, you're inherently violent. You of the extreme right. You have to stop supporting people like Trump, who's an egotistical maniac. He's not against the establishment, so to speak. In many respects, he is actually, which is the reason why you had such a backlash of people that hated him, even from the Conservative Party. But he's a fascist. He's a nationalist. In every way that Biden is an authoritarian and believes in keeping government consolidated. And you have minor differences only when it comes to the people, by the way, and it's always like that. When it comes to the key parts of adhering to the problems of society, which right now are coming from a lack of basic health care, a lack of real good education. I mean, the educational situation in this country is in the shitter. A continuing depleting of Social Security. Why? Because we got to pay the Pentagon somehow and spend billions of dollars to Ukraine while ignoring the pleas of the largest humanitarian crisis in Yemen. And so you people that support Trump, I mean, you look every bit as ridiculous as those who support Biden. And what you two should do, if you ever just wake up and realize that the game is being played on you, you'd have something in common. And you have more in common than you do that you have against, that you disagree on. So much more. You don't realize it. The common defense of the people comes from the Second Amendment. You of the right, the Trumpers, you of the left, the Biden supporters. It's you the federal government wants destroyed. Do you really think that the federal government has your best interests in mind? Do you see what's going on abroad and here in our own backyard? And you can't put two and two together and see that the game is being played on you, that your basic civil liberties are being slowly eroded And by the time you figure that out, it's too late. It's gone and we can't get it back. Did you really see hope and change in Obama from the Bush administration, who are guilty of some of the most egregious crimes of the 21st century regarding the Patriot Act, the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan? Well, look what Obama did. Hope and change my ass. He invaded Libya, destroyed Syria, drone strikes 7 Arab countries where hundreds of thousands are dead, as well as supporting and amending the Patriot Act into the USA Freedom Act, and allowed the intelligence services, signal intelligence of the NSA, to wiretap and to collect all your data and store it in a place called the Utah Data Center forever without a warrant. So much for privacy, so much for civil liberties, so much for hope and change from the Bush administration, because he was just an extension of it. In fact, he was more neoconish than Bush was in certain regards. Along came Trump. Oh, a man of the people. He speaks to us, the farm workers, the all, the miners, the laborers, the real people, the blue collar. Well, no, he didn't speak for you. He didn't give a shit about you, and ruined the unions of this country. And our economy hit the tank. You didn't like him because he was a sleazy sex panderer. And so you voted for Biden. Oh, we got to get a change from this guy. Well, what did Biden say? Nothing will fundamentally change. And that's exactly right. Are we any better than we were than the Trump administration? No. In certain respects, we're worse. And in certain respects, we're a little bit better. But fundamentally, nothing changed. Overall, we keep getting worse and worse and worse. And nothing is going to change if you vote Republican. Nothing is going to change if you keep voting Biden. They own the House and the Senate. And what they're telling you is keep voting for us so that we can help you fix your problems. Your problems can't be fixed. That's a real wake-up call for you. Oh, by the way, we got to amend the Second Amendment. Just in case. Can't have the public having AR-15s. Meanwhile, the same government that you support is ordering a standing army to invade countries and kill thousands of people. The military in this country kill more people than all the mass shooters combined of the last 100 years. Oh, I don't hear you complaining about what's going on with our boys in blue, destroying entire countries in the name of democracy. You actually believe that? Well, then you deserve everything you get. But you know what's going to happen? You're going to take an entire country right down with you. And then in the epic of the future, people are going to look back at this period and say, wow, were they primitive? Wow, were they ignorant? We'll never make those mistakes. And I got to hope for that type of future. Because right now, in the present, I don't see any hope at all. And unless you start making real change and stop allowing these oligarchs and affluents who have no care for you, no matter how much money you give them during the primaries and how much they fucking beg, your problems are never going to end. They're never going to stop, and they're never going to be alleviated, because that's exactly where the federal government wants you. They want you uneducated, unhealthy, divided, and always dependent on them. Well, there's a part of me that says, that I got to believe somehow that there are certain people out there who don't vote blue or red, who believe in the benefit of humanity, who believe in the essence of human rights and the defense from evil. And there's no bigger evil than the federal government of the United States, right here in our own backyard. And we need a means to defend ourselves if that day ever came. Now, you may say to yourself, there's no way on earth that the US government would order a standing military to attack its own citizens. Now, yeah, you may be right to some extent that there might be some people in the military that says, I'm not shooting my own people. But you just remember that those very same people you don't think would turn their guns on us would easily turn their guns on a brown or black person abroad and believe that what they were doing was in the name of democracy. They killed 1 million people in Iraq based on a lie. 50,000 were dead in Afghanistan, believing they were spreading democracy, when all they were doing was basically adhering to the principles of Raytheon, Boeing, LG3 Technologies, and the private military industrial complex. What do you think they're doing in Syria? They're overthrowing a federally elected government of Bashar al-Assad while fighting at the same side of the jihadists. Remember the war on terror? Why aren't we supporting them? Because that's what Barack Obama did in the Timber Sycamore program. He funded and trained those people. Sounds familiar? It's exactly what we did in 1979 with Operation Cyclone, when we funded and trained the Mujahideen. And by the way, that's happening in Ukraine. Billions of dollars to a government that we helped overthrow in 2014, implement a puppet government in which we support with billions of dollars, where we don't know where the weapons are going. And by the way, Ukrainian military has a large percentage of neo-nationalists, ultra-conservatives, neo-Nazis. If you don't think that the federal government would actually use the military to subdue you, well, then you are exactly the problem that we are facing in this country. And it's time to wake up.